Alright guys, we have a big weekend of Championship football coming up. Let's get into it. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. I think that this game week is set up to be one of the best we've had in the Championship so far this season with some of these matchups. I actually can't wait to get into this one. We got some cracking matches coming up on the Saturday, got a Monday night game going on as well. As always, make sure to get your guys' score predictions in the comments down below. We don't have an update on the prediction leaderboard as of yet, but as always, keep getting your score predictions down below. We also had some midweek matches going on, which we'll discuss throughout the video as well. But without any further ado, let's jump into this one. So to kick things off, we've got a couple of derby games going on as the 12:30 kickoffs. First of all, heading over to Bristol City up against Cardiff. Now, this game's come at an interesting point of the season, and both teams have been fairly inconsistent recently. Bristol City's problems have been shipping too many goals. Obviously, that 6-2 loss they had to Fulham being the example of that. But even stretching back further to that, you know, neither team has kept a clean sheet in any of their last 6 matches. So that would tell us that maybe some goals are being scored here. The advantage that Bristol City probably have coming into this game is that they've had much more of a goal threat about them recently. Even when they have been shipping goals at quite an unsustainable rate, they've still had, you know, Vyman popping up with goals, Semenya with 2 brilliant moments against Fulham. That could be the start of a decent partnership maybe between those two as well. Whereas we look at this Cardiff side, and they don't quite have that cutting edge in the final third. I think that was probably shown in their last game against Blackburn when, to be honest, they kept Blackburn at bay for the majority of that game. I think Blackburn only had like 1 shot on target in that one, but they just didn't really have all too much quality going for them in the final third. But with both defences being quite leaky at the moment, I can see some goals being scored. But I think I'm just leaning towards Bristol City for this one. They won 2-1 in the reverse fixture earlier on in the season. I think Vyman got a brace in that one. And I'm going to back the same in this one. I'm going to go 2-1 Bristol City with FIFA going 1-0 Bristol City. Should be a good game, that one. Next up then though, and to the big game of the weekend, we have Nottingham Forest going up against Derby. A game which is usually one that everyone sort of looks to on the calendar. But this game, more so than any that have gone before it in previous years, because of all the off the field issues coming into this one, is going to be such a fascinating watch at the City Ground this week, and I absolutely can't wait to see the outcome of this one. Now, Nottingham Forest going into this one with a good win last time. Lewis Grabban with that late winner against Millwall. They were definitely knocking on the door in that one, and right in the nick of time get themselves back to winning ways after those couple of defeats in the league. Going up against the Derby side though, who, despite all the off the field issues continuing to intensify, you know, this week we've had more statements coming from the EFL. We had a little bit more clarity coming out from Middlesbrough and Steve Gibson in terms of their position in all of this at the moment. The team on the pitch still continues to give it their all. They've won 4 out of their last 5 matches. Tom Lawrence with that brilliant brace last time against Sheffield United, and this is usually such a fascinating one because it means so much to both teams that it does end up becoming a bit of a must not lose. You know, the last 4 fixtures between these two sides have all ended as 1-1 draws. I put a poll out before on the community tab where you can vote on who you think will be the winner of this one, and as of recording, it's quite evenly poised at the moment between the amount of people that think Derby will come out on top, the amount of people that think Forest will come out on top. I think it will be a low scoring game. Derby have kept things fairly tight in that aspect so far this season, and Steve Cooper, when he's involved in the match, they never tend to be, you know, completely open. So a mistake could definitely decide this one, but I think I'm going to side with history on this one. I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-1 draw, obviously. We'll dive into the Derby stuff later. On a video by itself after the January transfer window, but I think the atmosphere, because of everything going on at the moment, is going to be something special in this one. But I'm going to sit on the fence and go for a 1-1 draw. FIFA's going 1-0 Forest. Good on next, we then go to St Andrews for Birmingham up against Barnsley. Now, Birmingham obviously involved in midweek action, the demolition against Fulham in the end, losing 6-2 in that one. Fulham are just running through teams at the moment, though it's part of a bigger picture, which is the concern for Birmingham. That's now 7 matches in all competitions that they're without a win. I obviously got to see Birmingham firsthand at the weekend against Preston. First half they weren't really in it. Second half made a couple of changes and tweaks. Although I thought that Preston should have won that one, they did have a little bit more about them, and maybe some of those loans that have come in, you know, Mendy and Onel Hernandez, give them a little bit more in that aspect. But looking at their next 3 matches, they're all against sides that are currently in the bottom 3. With Birmingham's current run of form, if they don't pull together a respectable number of points from those matches, suddenly, you know, the pressure really starts to mount on Lee Bowyer there. In terms of Barnsley, we've not seen them in league action this calendar year so far. Their game at the weekend against Blackpool was postponed due to COVID issues, wasn't it? The only game we've seen them in this calendar year was that bonkers 5-4 win they had over Barrow, but even that one didn't necessarily cover Barnsley in a lot of glory. I think I'm just going to edge Birmingham for this one ever so slightly. I'm going to go 1-0 Blues in this one, with FIFA going 1-0 Barnsley. It's been so long since we've seen Barnsley in action that I'm not sure how they're going to come back into this one, you know, maybe feeling fresh or looking a little bit rusty. So I'll just back Birmingham, but even in doing that, I'm not all too confident. Next up then to Bloomfield Road for Blackpool up against Millwall. Blackpool, another side in the Championship who we've not seen in action for some time. Their last game being that FA Cup third round disappointment against Hartlepool. Millwall haven't exactly got off to the best start for the new year. 3 games, 3 losses, 2 in the league. They had that quite gutsy performance against Crystal Palace as well, but that ultimately ended in defeat. Quite a frustrating one last time to lose it in the last minute against Nottingham Forest, but I don't think there'll be all too much in this one. It'll be the first chance we get to see Blackpool without Keshi Anderson. Obviously he picked up that injury in the FA Cup third round tie. I remember the reverse fixture earlier on in the season being quite a dramatic one between these two. I think that Blackpool had a man sent off fairly early on, and then it took Millwall, the last gasp winner, to go ahead and win this one. I think Jake Cooper with a late header to go ahead and seal all 3 points. But the way Millwall are going, Blackpool we've not seen too much of this year so far. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Will be interesting to see how Critchley sort of tinkers with that team a little bit to sort of offset the creativity that they've lost in having Keshi Anderson out for the foreseeable future. So I'll go for a 1-1 draw in that game. Thief is going for a goalless draw. Next them to Bournemouth up against Hull. Interesting game really. Bournemouth quite disappointing last time out. They had one spell in their game against Luton where it seemed like things were clicking for them once again, but defensive lapses ultimately meant that they lost that 1-3-2. And they have shown themselves to have come unstuck in a few of those types of matches so far this season, so Hull will definitely look to play on that. Hull, who got a brilliant result in midweek and have now got a 7-point buffer zone between themselves and the relegation zone. Since the takeover was announced, there's just been a real bounce around Hull. You know, you could see that in the crowd in midweek against Blackburn. The performance was a significant improvement on that quite dreary display they had last time out against Stoke as well. So I do think that Hull will give Bournemouth a decent game for this one, albeit Bournemouth's quality may just see them through in this one. I know that Bournemouth are set to make, I think, a late decision on both Philip Billing and Jun Zamura, whether they can be involved in this game or not, but you'd think that Bournemouth looking to bounce back from that disappointment last time out. I just think they'll get over the line in this one with a 2-1 home victory. But with that bounce in their step that Hull have got now because of the takeover, who knows what's possible, you know, for them to ride with that momentum with them. But I'm just going to go 2-1 Bournemouth for this one. Thief is going for a 1-1 draw. Next up, we then go to Coventry up against QPR. You'd think that this one would be a decent game. Now, with Coventry, there is an air of uncertainty as of recording in terms of the fitness of Matty Godden. There is a rumour going around that he may be on the sidelines for the next few weeks, which would be a little bit of cause for concern for Coventry. Obviously, as of recording, we don't know the validity of that rumour, but if that was to be the case, you'd think that maybe Gyökeres and Waghorn would come back into the frame in terms of, you know, they seem to work with each other fairly well at the start of the season. But Matty Godden definitely has been the main goal scoring threat for Coventry in recent weeks. It was fantastic as they put 4 goals past Peterborough. They're going up against the QPR side, who are in a really good run of form at the moment. They've only lost 2 of their last 11 matches. Now, QPR have been a bit of a difficult one to put my finger on recently, and QPR fans, you can have your input on this one in the comments down below, because they've been sort of grinding out the results, winning matches, but it's not been, I don't know what to say, like as fluid as I'd maybe come to expect with QPR and Mark Warburton sides at times, but they've still been getting these results over the line. They've sort of had patches in matches where, you know, things would start to click for them, and then they have patches when things start to get a little bit sloppy again. But whatever they're doing at the moment, despite, you know, the performances not being at 100 every week, they're getting results. And with that news that Matty Godden might be out for this one, I think that QPR get another result in this one. I'm going to go 2-1 QPR in this game, with FIFA going 2-0 QPR. Next then to Reading up against Huddersfield. Another really poor display from Reading in midweek now makes it 7 games without a win. Still perilously looking over their shoulder. It's just been the fact that Peterborough have really failed to capitalise on that over recent weeks, but Peterborough do now have a couple of games in hand on them, which is the worry. Huddersfield, you'd sense, would you know, think they've got an opportunity here to get back to winning ways. Lee Nichols had to be on top form last time for Huddersfield in that point they got against Swansea. But Reading have been such a shell of the side they looked at the start of the season. Their squad's looking really thin once again in midweek. It was made up by youngsters. I know they've got Jow sort of coming back into the frame, but he's going to have to do his best to try and offset the loss of Andy Carroll, who's obviously no longer signed on with the club. I do still think that they will have moments of quality in the final third, not necessarily due to a system or a tactical plan in place, but just due to some of the personnel they have. You know, you can see Swift, Hoyler or Jow when he gets himself back up and going, producing a moment every now and again, but defensively they've looked really rocky lately. That own goal from Holmes obviously didn't help in midweek, and for that reason I think it's probably another loss in this one. I'm going to go 2-0 Huddersfield, with FIFA going 1-0 Huddersfield. Next then to Bramall Lane for Sheffield United up against Luton. Luton on a really good run of form now, another win for them like we were just discussing in midweek. They'll be coming into this one full of confidence, which can't really be said about Sheffield United. That extended break that they had in their season has really thrown them off their stride. Obviously not having Morgan Gibbs-White for the time being due to injury is also hindering them, but I got to see Sheffield United up close and personal at the weekend, in midweek actually, as they came to Deepdale, and really was a game of two halves, because first 45 minutes I have to say I was really impressed by Sheffield United. They were playing some of the best football that I've seen at Deepdale so far this season. They completely overran our midfield. The players out wide were getting into good areas as well, and they deservedly so had that 2-goal lead. But the second half, and when Preston went down to 10 men, it just seemed like a complacency thing, a mentality thing more than anything really, because the shift in momentum for Sheff United in that second half was absolutely massive, and that's got to be a thing, a sort of mentality that's been sort of scarring them and left over from that Premier League season, because something just wasn't right with that side in the second half, albeit they still had a couple of golden opportunities to probably kill off that game. For that reason, I'm going to go for a draw in this game, because when they are playing their football and things are sort of going their way, Sheffield United can be a very good side, but as soon as a team starts to get in your face, which I think Luton will do for this game, those cracks suddenly start to appear. On the good front though for Sheffield United, Billy Sharp is now just 1 goal away from becoming the all-time Championship top goal scorer. He's currently joined with David Nugent after scoring a penalty in midweek. But for that game, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. FIFA's going 2-0 Sheffield United. Next up then to Stoke up against Fulham. It was another 6-goal showing from Fulham in midweek, and the fact that Mitrovic didn't even get on the score sheet, like he can have an off night and Fulham can still put 6 goals past you, is absolutely, you know, it's frightening stuff. They scored 19 goals in the past week, which is absolutely ridiculous. They're going up against a Stoke side who I do think will put up a bit more of a fight than some of the opposition they've come up against lately. You know, Stoke up against Hull last time I thought was Stoke's best performance in quite some time really, but it was against a Hull side who were, you know, really not on it for that game. You know, Stoke's midfield for that one seemed to work quite well, but I can't help but think that in a game like this, a midfield of Ince, Klukas and Allen could get really overrun by a Fulham side who have got so much quality in that area if they really start to get on top. So Stoke definitely have the threats to hurt Fulham in the final third, and Fulham have shown, even in these matches where they have been scoring, you know, 6 goals, that they do have a little bit of a leak in their back in terms of being vulnerable to counter-attacks and things like that. But there's so much firepower in this team at the moment that I can't see a way past them at the moment. I'm going to go 3-1 Fulham for that game, with FIFA going 2-0 Fulham. Next then we are heading to Swansea up against Preston, and thank God fans are back allowed in stadiums in Wales once again. There will be fans in for this one. Interesting game because Swansea looked quite good last time out actually against Huddersfield. Could have easily gone on to win that game if Lee Nichols didn't have the game he had in net for Huddersfield, and Swansea have added to their squad since then as well, with their Wolf coming in from the Bundesliga. So Swansea definitely have their threats and will look to control the middle of the pitch for this one. It's an area where Preston quite struggled with against Sheffield United, particularly for that first half when Sheffield United's midfield started to get on top. But in terms of that midweek performance from Preston, honestly I was absolutely blown away by that second half. How he managed it, you know, going down to 10 men, the fact that I think under previous regimes, under previous years at North End, we would have just, thrown that game away really, and it would have just gone into sort of damage limitation for that second half. But we kept on going. Ched Evans coming off from the bench was, a brilliant introduction. Alan Brown and Daniel Johnson seem like they're back to their best. I think that this new system suits them down to the ground. And so, yeah, even in these last 2 matches now that we've drawn under Ryan Lowe, I think there's been really good elements in both of them. The miss for Preston, though, will be Andy Hughes, who obviously picked up a red card in that game against Sheff Utd, so that's going to be a bit of a blow. I'd imagine that Cunningham maybe slots into the back three and maybe Josh Earl comes back in if he's fit enough to play. I'm going to go for, I think, a draw in this game. I'd like to back Preston, but Swansea looked decent last time out, and I have backed quite a few away wins already in today's video. I'm going to go for a draw in that one. Yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-1. Thief is going to agree with me. I could see that being sort of one goal either way, definitely. Next up then to the Hawthorns for West Brom up against Peterborough. West Brom do need to knuckle down now really and put together a consistent run. We spoke about the game last time against QPR being a little bit of a sliding doors moment in both sides' seasons, and a little bit of a gap has started to open up between West Brom and those teams above them. They are going on and into a series of quite winnable games though, this one being the start of that. And it does feel a bit like a foregone conclusion whenever we've spoken about Peterborough on the road so far this season. 12 games, 11 losses. Really poor last time out defensively against Coventry to ship 4 goals in that game. West Brom, I didn't realise as well, are now the only Championship side yet to lose a home match this season. Don't get me wrong, there still have been a few sort of frustrating draws dotted in throughout that time. That one against Cardiff last time out especially. But for a prediction in this one, I am going to back West Brom for all 3 points. DK's had a little bit more time to settle in and things like that. I'm going to go 2-0 West Brom in this one, with FIFA going for a 1-1 draw. Next up then to Ewood Park for some Monday night football. It's Blackburn going up against Middlesbrough. This one really interesting. Third going up against 6th. We've got Middlesbrough still on this fantastic unbeaten run. Won their last 4 matches. It was Matt Crooks with the brace last time against Reading. Going up against this Blackburn side who had been the form side in the league for a couple of months now really, but their unbeaten run coming to an end in midweek to the hands of Hull City in that rearranged game. Be interested to know what Blackburn fans thought of that penalty shout that they had in the first half, but I don't think that loss there would have been massive cause for concern. Blackburn were on, a ridiculous run of form, and that was always going to come to an end sooner rather than later. What will be interesting to see, though, is how they go ahead and react to that. And it's not an ideal situation that they're walking into here, particularly because the game's been rearranged for the Monday. So Brereton Diaz won't be available for this one, or their match against Luton as well. So 2 quite tricky matches that he's going to be missing there due to being called up to the Chilean national squad. So do Blackburn still have a consistent goal threat to come without Brereton? It's going to be interesting to see how they sort of offset that in these next couple of matches, and they are going up against one of the best sides in the league at the moment. Middlesbrough, really well-oiled machine, and I still think that there's more to come from this Borough side because of the additions that they made into this squad in January, and they're still yet to sort of properly bed those people in, the Ballagans, the Conleys, and the Riley McGrees as well. So for a score prediction in this one, I think in usual circumstances I would maybe be back in Blackburn because they've been so good at Ewood this season, but without Brereton, I'm not sure if Travis is going to be back for this one either. I'm just going to sway to a Middlesbrough 2-1 away victory. Thief has gone 1-0 Borough. It'll be interesting to see how much they miss Brereton in that one. But guys, there we have it. Those are my Championship score predictions heading into the weekend. Fingers crossed we've left behind, all the times when we have games being called off and things like that. Fingers crossed we got a full fixture list to go ahead and predict this weekend. But as always, make sure to get your thoughts and predictions in the comments down below. Make sure to leave a like if you did go on to enjoy, and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Thanks for watching though, guys. I'll see you all in the next one.